Thank you, respected Speaker, sir. I think in the last couple of minutes, the most amusing part of this discussion is that we are virtually discussing everything but the budget. But nevertheless, I'm glad at least Dada hinted out to the amount of the budget that is going to be allocated for Jammu and Kashmir. But since I said everything else has been discussed but the budget, so I think sensing the sense of the House, some of those points also need to be responded. Dada is our senior, our guru, a veteran. But Dada, forgive me, I thought you were a reasonable Bengali intellectual. Yeah, I still believe. But, and yes, I appreciate you mentioned our founding member, Sama Prasad Mukherjee, in complimentary terms. But you would also appreciate that, and you also referred to the slogan, the mantra given by him, Ek Vidhan, Ek Kisan, Ek Pradhan. And you would also appreciate, like a good Bengali, when Sama Prasad Mukherjee gave this mantra, there were virtually no takers around. But he followed the dictum of another great Bengali, the son of Bengal, Rabindranath Tagore, कि जादे तो रिडक्शन चले एकला चलो रे, जादे तो रिडक्शन एक ना अच्छे तो भी एकला चलो रे. So I belong to an organization which has a rich legacy connected to the land to which Sama Prasad Mukherjee belonged. But what I was little confused when Dada suddenly took a turn and said that all this is being said to appease the Prime Minister so that he says good boys. So, no, but what I'm trying to say is, Dada, you reminded me of Rabindranath Tagore's poetry. Just now which I mentioned, Ekla Chalo. And you also reminded me of Shakespeare when you said that. Et tu Brutus, Julius Caesar. I thought Dada also talking like that. So in your brief discourse, you have taken me from Tagore to Shakespeare. But my moot question, before I respond to some of the points, is our friend Manish ji is not there. We have known each other for a very long time. We are very close to each other. And he too belongs to a border area and has faced the threat of terrorism for a very long time, including his family. I thought he would start by complimenting us that on the lines of the Wagah border, we have also started something at the Suchetgarh border, where we have similar exchange of salute in the evening. Suchetgarh border is the border. But having said that, जिस तरह से मनीष जी ने सारा सुनाया कि 5-6 अगस्त 2019 के बाद ये हुआ, वो हुआ, क्या किया, कुछ नहीं किया, और 370 अनुच्छेद हटाया, और क्यों हटाया? तो let me first begin by placing a small question. क्या कांग्रेस पार्टी ऑन द फ्लोर ऑफ दिस हाउस आज ये कहेगी कि अगर वो वापस आए तो 370 वापस लाएंगे? ये बोलो. So let's settle down this question. You don't say that because you know what the public sentiment is. So you want to beat about the bush and have it both ways.
Yes, Honorable Minister, please address the chair.
दूसरा, मनीष जी ने भी कहा, दादा ने भी कहा कि गृह मंत्री जी कह गए थे द स्टेटहुड विल बी रिस्टोर्ड. तो ये कब होगा? शायद कांग्रेस को याद नहीं है, पंडित नेहरू कॉन्स्टिट्यूएंट असेंबली में सामा प्रसाद मुखर्जी को कह गए थे कि ये घिसते घिसते घिस जाएगी, अनुच्छेद 370, लेकिन 70 साल नहीं घिस सकी, हमने घिसाई। प्रधानमंत्री मोदी जी ने जब बागडोर देश की संभाली, एंड ही शोड द करेज, द कन्विक्शन, द कैपेसिटी, एंड द लेजिस्लेशन वाज मूव्ड बाय द होम मिनिस्टर अमित शाह। तो मैं सिर्फ इतना आपको आश्वासन दे सकता हूं, to add to, because I don't have to add to what the Honorable Home Minister has said. He said that the appropriate time statehood would be restored. Can I take the permission of just making a small point that it will not take 70 years? आपने तो 70 साल लगाए 370 हटाने को, फिर भी हटा नहीं सके। हम 70 साल नहीं लगाएंगे, उससे पहले ही, as the Honorable Home Minister has said, at the appropriate time it will be restored. As long as he is accusable. My friend Rajaji asked me, how long are you going to accuse Nehru? I said, as long he is accusable, as long generation after generation continue to pay for the follies and the Nehruvian blunders. हुआ क्या है, on a serious note, there is a vested interest in Jammu and Kashmir also, which survives, thrives, and flourishes in an atmosphere of mayhem, insurgency, terrorism, uncertainty. 5-10% वोटिंग हो, चुनाव हो जाए, सदस्य बन जाए, सदन के भी, लोकसभा के भी, विधानसभा के भी, सरकार बन जाए, and they flourish in an atmosphere of vacuum. और ये 370 का जाना सबसे ज़्यादा उन्हीं की पीड़ा का कारण है। In fact, I said this earlier, about 3 years back. I hope someday somebody would suggest that there should be a minimal threshold voting percentage for any candidate to qualify to become a member of the Lok Sabha. Yes. Otherwise, we'll have to bear with the 7%, 8% vote turnout members. Yes, and I'm sure Dada's party will support us when we do that. The TMC. और इसलिए, to keep the pot boiling, every day a new story is manufactured. The latest is only a few hours ago. And it also relates to what the subject that Dada mentioned, that of Kashmiri Pandits. Just around the time when this house sat in the morning, the Congress party ने एक बयान जारी किया कि कश्मीरी पंडितों का विस्थापन का कारण जगमोहन थे, कि जगमोहन ने उनको वहां से भगाया. As such an inhuman and insensitive observation of a historic tragedy, because I don't know whether we realize. नहीं, पहले उन बातों का जवाब देना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि मुझे मालूम है आप भी यही बातें करेंगे. The biggest, I think the only instance in the history of the world where a huge population of a community became homeless in their own homeland, refugees in their own country. And the biggest exodus possibly that has happened after that of the 1947 partition, when there was exchange of Hindu and Muslims and the riots followed. और ये बात जो कांग्रेस वाले कह रहे हैं, क्योंकि इनकी मेमोरी शॉर्ट है, ये सोचते हैं बाकियों की मेमोरी है, लेकिन वी हैव अ एलिफेंट मेमोरी, हमने तो काम ही ये किया. I vividly remember in early 90s when the exodus had just taken place, the same Congress party had said that Jagmohan has generated this exodus because he wants Kashmiri Pandits to go and get free plots in Jammu and Delhi. And that time also I had said, मोहसिन भोपाली एक शायर हुए हैं, उन्होंने बंटवारे के समय जब इतनी बड़ी संख्या में आबादी इधर से उधर जा रही थी और कटरो गारत हो रही थी, तो तब भी कुछ लोगों ने व्यंग किया, तो उन्होंने एक शेर लिखा था कि बेसबब लोग बदलते नहीं मनसक अपना, तुमने देखा है जलता हुआ नशेमन अपना. जिस आदमी को ये कभी कल्पना ना की हो, तसव्वुर ना किया हो कि मेरे घर को आग लग जाए, वो आतिशे नजर हो तो उसका क्या मंजर होगा, क्या दृश्य होगा, वही आदमी इस तरह की संवेदनहीन बातें कह सकता है. कोई अपना घर नहीं छोड़ता. द मैनर इन विच दे वर आस्क्ड टू लीव देयर होम एंड अर्थ. And I don't want to go back because इन्होंने कहा Nehru, and I said that in the last debate also. If only Nehru had allowed his home minister to handle Jammu and Kashmir as he was handling the rest of the princely states, I think we would not have arrived at a pass that we have. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And that is why, in the spirit of good comradeship and a good cabinet collective responsibility, he allowed his own Prime Minister to intrude into his domain, which was naturally his domain as Home Minister. मोदी जी ने सरदार पटेल को वो रुतबा दिया, वो दर्जा दिया जो ना कांग्रेस दे सकी ना टीएमसी दे सकी. अब ऐसा है, गांधी जी भी इधर आ गए हैं, महात्मा गांधी, पटेल भी आ गए, बाबा साहब अम्बेडकर भी आ गए, सुभाष चंद्र बोस भी आ गए, और नहीं मोहिता जी अब दादा भी इधर आ गए.
Yes, please.
और दादा भी आ गए. The question is,
Yes, Minister. Minister, you are responsible.
सभी है, सबका साथ सबका विकास. आपका भी विकास है. अब बेसिकली क्या हुआ कि दे आर लूजिंग देयर आइकॉन, दे आर सर्चिंग कि पटेल कहाँ, गांधी कहाँ, अम्बेडकर कहाँ, सुभाष कहाँ. But it had to happen because Modi ji has introduced a new political culture in this land. You have been seeking votes to come here. Who else not? All of us are here with vote, but not using vote as a vote bank to reach out where it is required. Not appeasement. And this is what we are talking in the context of Kashmir is absolute appeasement. National Conference के जज साहब बैठे हैं. What happened in 1987? This entire exodus was triggered by a rigged election, and आप कह रहे हैं कि जगमोहन ने निकाला, बीजेपी ने निकाला, राजीव गांधी और फारूक अब्दुल्ला का अकॉर्ड था, आप साथ थे, इलेक्शन रिग हुआ, उसके बाद किलिंग हुई, स्क्वाड्रन लीडर खन्ना एंड अदर्स गॉट किल्ड बाय in their Air Force uniform, and the killers were still at large. The action has started against them only after the governor's rule, after it became UP. और कश्मीरी पंडित इसलिए वहां से निकला.
Yes, Minister.
लेकिन छोड़ी भी हम ही ने. लेकिन दाद दीजिए. कोई मजबूरी नहीं थी. हमने सत्ता त्याग दी जब हमें लगा कि हमारे सिद्धांतों का पालन नहीं हो रहा.
जितेंद्र सिंह जी.
First time in the history, a coalition, we have walked out of coalition by a voluntary decision, not under any compulsion.
You are responding to all the queries, not making speech.
Sorry, Mr. Speaker, sir. So there were selective killings of the Kashmiri Pandits. Kill one, threaten 1,000. That was the formula being followed. Tika Lal Taplu, then another director from Doordarshan, just because he happened to be Kashmiri Pandit. So they had to leave their home and hearth and run away. But that apart, this has been triggered with this film called Kashmir Files, which has come in. Now, अगर वो जाएंगे भी तो भारतीय जनता पार्टी की सरकार के द्वारा ही जाएंगे. दादा, मुझे हैरत इस बात की होती है, अब जज साहब भी मुझे टोक रहे हैं, जज साहब भी टोक रहे थे, कांग्रेस भी. मैं ये कह रहा था कि अब तो सबक सीख लीजिए. जम्मू कश्मीर के कांग्रेस और नेशनल कॉन्फ्रेंस के सारे नेता धीरे धीरे एक करके बीजेपी में शामिल हो रहे हैं. सिर्फ हाई कमांड किसी बहम में है. And those who have not joined are waiting to join. And I think that's a vindication, huge vindication, that The Bharatiya Janata Party-led government under Prime Minister Modi is on the right course. We have redeemed Kashmir. We have done what Congress should have done. We have done what Congress promised to have done. It was the Congress stalwarts who in the Constituent Assembly also suggested and agreed to include the temporary clause phrase. They couldn't do it because over the years a vested interest developed and they thought this was going to serve their advantage. अब एक एक करके 2-4 मिनट लेके जो मुद्दे उठाए गए हैं, incidentally the statistics has also been translated into political phrase while being presented in this house. Munish ji कह रहे थे कि he was very much concerned about the governance part of it. कि साहब governance का क्या हुआ 33 महीने में. Before 5th and 6th August and before this area became a union territory, there were a host of such rules, laws, which I am sure no political party would have an objection to be implemented, not even Dada's party. For example, Prevention of Corruption Act 1988. Dada, why would you oppose? Nobody would oppose. It was not implemented in Jammu and Kashmir under the LAB of 370. So 370 was actually being used for guarding their own interests. And since I'm also dealing with DOPT, it was DOPT law, and after 30 long years, it was amended in 2018 through an amendment that we brought, wherein we introduced certain modifications, improvisations. Even the bribe giver was made answerable for this crime. But in Jammu and Kashmir, this law was introduced only about 1.5 years back. Now, this has got nothing to do with the special status or identity or autonomy or all those tall claims. Similarly, Child Marriage Act. Dada, tell me, which country in the world will have an objection to punish a person who encourages child marriage? बाल विवाह तो एक पाप माना जाता है, गुनाह माना जाता है, धर्म कोई हो, मजहब कोई हो. What prevented the successive Congress and National Conference governments in Jammu and Kashmir for not allowing this law to be implemented? Dowry Act. I'm sure our sisters on both the sides would bear me out. What was wrong in implementing Dowry Act? This has been implemented only 1.5 years. Today, it is an era of evidence-based argument. Unfortunately, we don't cite arguments. ये गलत कैसे है? This is on record. This is on record. No, I'll tell you. जो आप कहना चाह रहे हैं वो बता. अब मैं आपको बताता. I'm not yielding. मैं आपको समझाता हूँ. हुआ क्या है? To cover up for that, they had their own anti-corruption act. They had their. अरे मैं वही कह रहा हूँ. जो आप कहना. They had their. But why?
Sudhi ji, you can.
बात ये है कि मेरी बात.
Ministry is not yielding. You can counter your argument.
मैं ये नहीं कह रहा. You had your own anti-corruption act. Why didn't you implement the Prevention of Corruption Act of India, which even West Bengal was implementing? Why couldn't you?
Minister, if you are responding, if you are responding to all the queries, then you have to yield.
इन्होंने ऐसा एक्ट बनाया कि जिसको जेल खाने में डालना है डाल दो, जिसको बरी करना उसके खिलाफ केस लगाओ, वो 25-30 साल नौकरी करके सेवानिवृत्त हो जाए, भगवान को प्यारा भी हो जाए, केस का फैसला ना हो. That was the kind of anti-corruption act that they had. These are petty points. I am sorry, Dada, if Child Marriage Act issue is a petty point, it's a matter of shame. No. I think the whole country is watching you, Dada. Doesn't behove you saying so.
Yes,
if
please.
You say Dowry Act and SC/ST reservation. अरे साहब पॉलिटिकल रिजर्वेशन अभी हुई है, दुनिया सारी जानती है. इट्स पार्ट ऑफ द रिकॉर्ड्स व्हाट आई एम सेइंग. जय साहब,
you can counter in your speech.
जय साहब मैं जानता हूँ आप कानून साज हैं, लेकिन मार्क ट्वेन एक बात कह गए थे इकोनॉमी के बारे में. इकोनॉमी टू सीरियस अ सब्जेक्ट टू बी लेफ्ट टू इकोनॉमिस्ट. We saw happening this in this country also. So I think law too serious to be left to judge alone. Let the members of the House deal with this. It is a matter of fact, it's on record. RTI एक्ट आपका अपना था, वो नहीं था जो बाकी हिंदुस्तान में था, ये सारे पिछले 2 सालों में लगे। हिंदुस्तान वाला ही लगाया है। 73-74 अमेंडमेंट जिसकी अभी जुगल किशोर जी बात कर रहे थे। What prevented you? And you know something who brought in 73-74? Gaurav Gangoi ji, you will be happy and I compliment you that. It was Rajiv Gandhi government. और इससे क्या था? Let's have a fair debate. No, I compliment you. अरे, I am complimenting you. You see, the fact उससे क्या था कि जो राशि केंद्र से निर्धारित की जाए स्थानीय इकाइयों के लिए सीधा सीधा निर्वाचित प्रतिनिधि तक पहुंचे, पंच, सरपंच, बीडीसी, डीडीसी। जम्मू कश्मीर ने क्यों नहीं लगाया? वहां तो कांग्रेस की सरकार गठबंधन में थी, अपना ही लाया हुआ एक्ट नहीं लगाया। National Conference and Congress were ruling the state and still not implementing what they cherished as Rajiv Gandhi's hallmark. हमने लगाया ना, अब लग चुका है. And now 10,000 crore is directly going to the kitty of the local body. Earlier, why it was not implemented? So that the central grant would go to the chief minister office or go to the parliamentary minister office, and then he or she would decide how much to give whom and when. इंटरव्यू समाप्त करने का कार्य 6 महीने पहले हुआ. प्रधानमंत्री मोदी ने 2016 में लाल किले से अपने स्वतंत्रता दिवस के संबोधन में कहा था कि क्या इस प्रथा को समाप्त नहीं किया जा सकता, क्योंकि शिकायतें आती थी कि 100 अंक लेता था कोई रिटन टेस्ट में, उसको इंटरव्यू में फेल कर दिया जाता, और जो रिटर्न में कम लिए होते उसको 100 अंक इंटरव्यू में देकर किया जाता. भाई भतीजा बात होता, पक्षपात होता, कहीं लेन देन के भी इल्ज़ाम आते. सारे देश में ख़त्म किया गया. डीओपीटी का हमारा विभाग था, मैंने स्वयं पत्र व्यवहार किए एक के बाद एक रिस्पेक्टिव हेड्स ऑफ द स्टेट इन जम्मू एंड कश्मीर, समटाइम्स चीफ मिनिस्टर, समटाइम्स, but it didn't happen. It was possible, it could be done only after the Lieutenant Governor took over. The interviews have been abolished. Like in the rest of the country, Prime Minister Modi gave a level playing field in job recruitments. फिर आई बात delimitation की. I'll not go into that because I'm sure at least for that Judge Sahab would appreciate me, because it's a constitutionally constituted body, so we respect its integrity. We don't have to question its motives. Now, industry. I think Manish ji would appreciate if I just correct his figures. वो कह रहे थे कि बाहर से कोई निवेश नहीं हुआ. Officially, more than rupees 50,000 crore has already been invested in Jammu and Kashmir. And leading houses, including the Apollo corporate in the medical sector, Haldiram, and so many leading houses have already put in their investments over there, and it's in the process of acquirement of land, etc. Lulu, yes. अब आ गया employment का. See, there, like rest of the country, have been issues of employment. But no government in the world can give a salaried government job to each and every individual. But yes, I agree. For a responsible government, the duty is to prepare means of livelihood. And now the question is why these means of livelihood were not made available in Jammu and Kashmir, even in spite of the fact they were available in the rest of the country. Especially after 2016, Stand Up India, Startup India movement started in a big way. Again, Prime Minister Modi announced it from the Red Fort. Why didn't it pick up in Jammu and Kashmir? Because the atmosphere was created in such a way that they live in a cocoon, they are not given exposure from outside world, and then you can thrive in that atmosphere. और उल्टा, ना कोई रिक्रूटमेंट रूल था, ना कोई प्रोसेस था. जो सरकार आती अपनी मनमानी से नियुक्तियां करती गई. We have about 1 lakh daily wagers now. And government is seriously working on that, both the Home Ministry at the center and the Lieutenant Governor's office, to find out a solution how best to address their problem because वो ठगा गया उनका अपना तो कोई कसूर नहीं है। उनको कहा गया भाई ये जम्मू कश्मीर है, पैर फंसा दीजिए, बाद में खुद ही परमानेंट हो जाएगी। But we have all the sympathies for them. They have been left in a lurch and fending for themselves for a few thousand rupees. But we have accepted that challenge because there are certain complications involved. कोई ऐसा रास्ता हो जिसमें लिटिगेशन ना आए, जिसमें जो दूसरा यूथ अनएम्प्लॉयड है उसको बेचैनी ना हो, वो इतराज़ ना करे। बट वी आर सीरियसली सीज्ड ऑफ द मैटर। अब मनीष जी ने कहा कि रिजर्वेशन होनी चाहिए माइनॉरिटीज़ की। हैरत की बात है, इतने साल कांग्रेस रही, उन्होंने नहीं सोची ये बात। अगर ये आपको ज्ञान पहले आ गया होता तो आप हमारे से क्यों मांग करते, खुद ही कर दी होती। आपने तो माइनॉरिटी कमीशन नहीं बनाया, सिख समाज उसकी मांग करता रहा, क्यों नहीं बनाया। अब आई डोंट वांट टू गो इनटू दैट हिस्ट्री क्योंकि फिर दैट विल ट्रिगर समथिंग एल्स। दादा ऑल्सो एक्सप्रेस्ड concerned that there is 73% of the budget to security. 63. And Manish ji also. But Dada, you may be right, but Manish ji से ये कहूँगा कि उन्हीं की देन है, ये उन्हीं की विरासत है जिसको भुगतने के लिए इतना बजट वहाँ लगाना पड़ता है। If the militancy and terrorism were not allowed to flourish in the manner they did, with the tactic connivance of the government in place, maybe we would not have reached such a stage. As of today, ये गलत है कहना। I have the figures with me. If the speaker allows me, I'll just read out one or two important those figures which are pointed out by my friend Manish. He was particularly mentioning to the infiltrations. Now, as far as infiltrations are concerned, in the year 2010, during UPA 2, there were 489 attempts made. When this government came in and we took the oath on the evening of 26th May 2014 under Prime Minister Modi, in that year 2014, the number of infiltration attempts were 222. In the last year, that is 2021, under Prime Minister Modi, the number of attempts has come down to two figures, just 77. And this year, in the last 2 months, it's been only 7. Sorry, only 4. So last full year, 12 months, it was 77. This year, in the first 1 month or so, it has been only 4. Now compare it to the huge numbers. So
why
I think the figures speak for themselves.
Minister sir, why don't you give a status pre-Article 3 abrogation, pre-Article 370 and post-Article 370?
Yes, I have that also, Honorable Speaker. And if you allow me, I will give you that also. But I have actually, why I didn't go into that, because my colleague, MOS Home, Nityanand ji, has already furnished this as a reply to the House. I, in fact, have only borrowed that from the library of the Parliament. So it's already in the...
Even subsequent statement will be good enough.
Sure, we can. I can also suggest to MOS Nityanand ji कि एक बार फिर से statement देके सारे figures दे दिए जाए.
Thank you.
Sir, now the point is, yes, as far as development is concerned, I am not going to detail about it because it will be repetitive. Jugal Kishore ji ने पूरा आपको बताया. Not only new projects have been introduced, but some of those projects which were of national interest, which were of vital interest, were also held back. Now again I am going to Gaurav Gogoi ji. 1960 में इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी हुआ, जब पंडित जी प्रधानमंत्री थे, जनरल अयूब खान थे पाकिस्तान में। उस ट्रीटी के तहत इंडिया गॉट 3 rivers, पाकिस्तान गॉट 3 rivers. इंडस, झेलम, चनाब went to Pakistan. This is sharing of the river waters because partition had happened, so this was another issue pending. India got Satluj, Vyas and Ravi, Ravi being the biggest. जब भी हमारा पाकिस्तान से कोई झगड़ा होता तो कोई बुद्धिमान नेता खड़ा होकर के कह देता कि पाकिस्तान का पानी रोक दीजिए। It happened about 4 or 5 years back, and I raised this issue कि जो लोग ये कह रहे हैं कि पाकिस्तान का पानी रोक दीजिए, उनको शायद इस बात का भी इल्म नहीं, समझ नहीं, ज्ञान नहीं कि हमारे हिस्से का पानी भी पाकिस्तान जा रहा है। इंडस वाटर ट्रीटी के साथ the major share of the Ravi was our major water. There was a dam called Shahpur Kandi. During Sheikh Abdullah's regime, it was conceived and also stalled. रोक दिया गया. Why? Maybe there was some vote back consideration के कौन से region को. It would have irrigated and made far surplus the entire border belts of Punjab and Jammu and Kashmir. As a result of which, the entire share of India's water through river Ravi was flowing into Pakistan. It was only with the personal intervention of Prime Minister Modi, 2 years back, fresh draft was prepared, and this, I think, dam, the project is going to be completed by this year end.
Yes, Minister, now I think...
Yes. So what I'm trying to say is...
Yes, yes.
Dada, Ravi River is as much yours. See, Dada, Ravi is as much yours as Hooghly is mine.
Right.
Don't you agree? जैसे बंगाल का हुगली है.
Yes, Minister, please.
So what I'm trying to say, Honorable Speaker, that these are serious subjects. Let's not get into the politicking of it. Let's take the rationale of it. And it's very easy to say, अरे साहब जब से हुआ तो ये हो गया. मैंने उस दिन भी कहा था कि पहले हमें रामराज छोड़ के गए थे क्या, जो हमने बिगाड़ दिया. और अगर वाकई if you have this conviction, if you are saying this with conviction कि 370 के हटने के बाद ही सारा तहस नहस हुआ, then have also the courage to say that if Congress comes back tomorrow, our main agenda would be we would restore 370. वो भी नहीं कहते आप, क्योंकि लगता है कि फिर एक आज जो प्रदेश बचा है वो भी जाएगा. So let's be rational, let's be grounded in making arguments on a subject as sensitive as Jammu and Kashmir. And I hope in the rest of the discussion, when we hear the finance minister, we'll confine ourselves concentrating only on the budget. Thank you.